Hi, you're listening to Thoughtful Wellness Revolution with Zara and Tien, a podcast where we believe wellness isn't wellness if it's just for you. Today, we are talking to Milton C. Stewart, founder of Kaizen Careers, Coaching and Consulting, as well as podcast host for the Do It for the Gram Enneagram podcast. And he is located in Memphis, Tennessee. So, Milton, what's on your mind today?
Oh, wow. Thank you for the introduction. It's like so professional. I love that. Oh my goodness.
You showed up so professional with your background and all.
We have to do our best.
I really appreciate it. What's on my mind today? Rest. I rested a lot today because yesterday was a whole lot. I did some training, and my training goes late into the night. And so it was a lot of rest that I took today. I had a meeting to go to, aka virtual. Whenever I go to a meeting now, like a Zoom meeting, I'm like, I'm going to this meeting when I'm really not. I'm just really like turning on the screen and pushing a button. But
We all are, Milton. We all are.
it's like, or if I say I'm going to meet someone, I end up actually saying I'm actually meeting them in Zoom. I'm not meeting them for real. I was like, I'll meet you, at 6. I sent a text and they was like, what? And I was like, virtually. Virtually. That's what I really mean. But yeah, today it was a lot of rest and pulling some energy in so that I can be at my best. And I feel really good and alert right now. Yeah, so I'm excited.
I kind of think that leads us into Hien. Hien and I had kind of talked about asking you to describe the Enneagram, why it's important, kind of how it fits into wellness. Did you have a better way to phrase that, Hien, before he goes?
Oh, that was basically it, is wanting to know more about your thoughts on the Enneagram, and in particular, how you see the Enneagram fit with your own wellness experience and practices.
Oh, I have never been healthier until I met the Enneagram. And I say that in a way that is more holistic health. Like I ran track growing up and all type of stuff. So physically, like, yeah, in that one sense of being athletically healthy, but not in being like somatically healthy, mentally healthy, physically healthy, healthy in the way that I engage other people. The Enneagram allows me to actually like check in with my mental. So I can check in with what's going on in my brain, what's going on, some patterns that I may be having, thought patterns that may not be healthy. I can check those, see what's going on there, and then have resources to work with them. Allows me to check in with my heart, which has been a place that I have not naturally check in based on my Enneagram type. And so it allows me to check in with my heart and see what's going on there so that I can engage better, I can connect better, and not just connect better with other people, but connect better to myself as well. And then also the somatic part of it, which is even though someone could be like the world's greatest athletes, the somatics, aka understanding what's happening in the body in correspondence to life and stimuli, has been huge for understanding like how to listen to my body so that I make sure I'm getting the nourishment I need. And then nourishment, it may be in the form of physical food, but it also may be in the form of relationships. It also may be in the form of like taking time to like go rest, like I said before. So it has allowed me to be quite healthy in a lot of different ways. So the Enneagram, it is on the surface of what many people think personality test. It's like, oh, I got a personality, but it's way, way more. It really describes the why behind how we behave, how we think, and how we kind of emote. And so it's very important to understand that, because if we understand the why, then we have a chance to actually do something about it, be able to change things that may not be healthy for us or may not be on tilted going the right way. So when we can catch those patterns, we can really change things and become healthier holistically.
Wow, that was so cool. Like just the way that you shared your own experience and that in relation to the Enneagram. And so I guess one thing I'm curious about, because, I know about the Enneagram thanks to Zara, and also because the therapist I'm currently working with, it's funny. I tell Zara, like, I basically pay this woman to let me talk about my feelings and to learn about the Enneagram, because we use the Enneagram in our sessions. And so I'm curious to know then, with what you're saying, how best should people, or not how best, how would you recommend like the best way for people to begin to explore the Enneagram for themselves? Because I know there's like that personality kind of part. What would you recommend that they do to go a little bit deeper and including all the things that you said, like the somatics and whatnot.
Yeah. So when we talk about going deeper, and so they're not just looking on Instagram and finding like really funny memes about their number or somebody else's number, and boxing people in. So if we're talking about going a little bit deeper, I would say one thing is to actually attend an Enneagram conference or training by like either accredited or very, very good Enneagram teacher or expert. That's what I would say. That's one of the ways, because you're going to learn things from them that you won't pick up on social media. You're going to learn things from them that are more nuanced. You're going to learn things from them that also come from like years and experience of studying people, being with people, working with people and the different types. And so you pick up that, and what it does, it allows you to actually do work and grow. Like, there's one thing, like I said, to look at a social media post and laugh at it and then stay there. It's like, oh, that's my box. That's my personality box. I live there. And it's like, no, 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 no. The goal of the Enneagram is not for you to live in your number box. It's to be dynamic. It's to be able to see those patterns and be different, to embody the energy of all the 9 types and not just like, I'm one type for my life, you know? And so it's really undoing some of the unhealthy patterns that we have in our type, and not being addicted to what it actually can be a gift. That's a huge issue. It's like we're all addicted to something in our type, but it's like it's a problem when it becomes an addiction. It's a gift, some of it, but like when it becomes addiction, it's all this bad stuff that comes with it. And aka ego. I won't go into that. So those are the things that I would definitely say. You can do work. It's like looking at the IEA website, which is International Enneagram Association website. They got a ton of different teachers on there. They got a ton of different programs. Do It for the Gram podcast. I have one. And I mentioned in a lot of my episodes, I mentioned a lot of the different really good teachers that I've learned from that have programs going on. I'm doing a program now, but just finding that way to connect with like an Enneagram teacher or expert who's been doing it a while, like who it's experienced, that's the way to go deeper. And then after that, you'll find communities, you're going to make connections. I mean, that's how I know Zara, right? That's how we know each other. So and then you just keep doing the work, and before you know it, like you're really growing, challenging yourself, and you've built a community. You didn't even build it necessarily, it just kind of found you and you became a part of it, and it's like, whoa, this is awesome. So I think that's probably the best way to go deeper with it.
I have a follow-up question to that I already sort of know the answer to, but I'd love to hear you answer.
Okay.
How? Because there are so many people who talk about the Enneagram, who know about the Enneagram, who perhaps teach about the Enneagram. How do you determine a good teacher?
Oh, wow. That's a good one. So I think that's a loaded question, Zara.
That's a good question. We gotta know. Our listeners gotta know.
I mean, there's so many reasons.
But yeah.
Yeah.
And tell me if I leave something out, Zara, because I know we've probably even talked about this quite often. But I think one of the things you need to look for in a teacher is not only their own knowledge, like they may have a lot of knowledge, but are they doing the work? And are they doing inner and outer work? So does their life reflect like the Enneagram work that they should be doing in their specific type? So sometimes you can definitely see that by the way that they correspond with other people. For those who are on social media, the ones who are on there, you can sometimes really catch what they do and how they teach. That's one way. Another way is to, if they're a teacher who is humble, who's like, they're doing the work. They're constantly doing the work. It's like, they know they're not perfect. They have a lot of knowledge, but they're actually embodying what they're trying to teach to other people. And then I think the other thing I would say is probably, so there is the International Enneagram Association. Everybody who's a part of it is not, everybody who's not a part of it and who is a part of it doesn't mean that they're like necessarily like a great teacher, and they're not a great teacher if they're not. They're trying to make the standard better. So that like it is more, it's a better line of like having accredited teachers. They're trying to make it where it's like you can check these things out. But I think I'm trying to think because it's like you said you know the answer. I was like thinking to myself, I'm like, what answer is she looking for? That we may even talked about.
I'm not looking for a specific answer. I just know there are so many bad Enneagram teachers out there who are not necessarily doing their work.
Say it like it is. Say it like it is. Yeah, that's the tricky part. So um if you just watch and monitor a person, really like monitor them and what they're doing, because you're going to find out if they're a teacher and they got like a platform. You're going to find out, right? And it's not to say like this person's a good person per se. We're not looking for a good or bad person. We're looking for a person who's constantly doing their work and trying to build and help other people and themselves. So if you find people who are doing that, then they're doing the work. They really are. But if they're not, it's like and then who are they connected to? You know, like there's a connections in the Enneagram world of teachers, and if you start to see them, if they're really connected to teachers who are bringing forth and doing way more than just quote unquote inner work for themselves, but they're actually doing the outer work as well, aka giving to their community in different communities, then I mean you can really look at it and be like, okay, maybe this person is doing the work. Because I think that's one of the biggest parts, is just when you learn about a teacher, you get to know them. And so I think that's the biggest way. And then once you become part of the community, then you have other people you can ask. I'm like, what about this person? What about this person? I'm just wondering, So I would say that's probably the best way, without saying that like I could look at a post when somebody posts something on social media and be like, they don't know the Enneagram. Besides that, you know, um, that's probably the best way until you get in contact with somebody that's like, oh, that information they put down there is actually wrong, and they just like conjured that up out of the blue or something. Yeah.
Yeah, what I find interesting in hearing what you're saying is that I think a lot of it can parallel, say, like the yoga and meditation world. If we're looking at teachers, as someone who's a yoga and meditation teacher, is that you can see people who are teaching yoga and whether they're really doing the inner and outer work. A lot of it can seem like they're doing some outer work. With social media, there's always the performative posts, right? Where they'll say like, oh, I'll teach our class on this and we'll donate to this because of, whatever cause or whatever they're trying to seem like they're doing. And so I can see that. But I think also then what makes me curious is then, are there sort of maybe, I don't know if the word is red flags, or like maybe signs of a type of teacher or type of person you could stay away from? Like I know, for instance, with like in the yoga world, for me, I like to try to stay away from teachers who have a very hardcore like diet culture language. Like, oh, come to this yoga class just so you can like lose weight and sculpt your booty and all that. And like, that's not even yoga then, because it's much deeper than that, right? Or, the meditation teacher who's just trying to sell you like a training or a retreat where they don't acknowledge like the like philosophical underpinnings of like meditation. And so those are like things for me that I would look out for. I'm curious to know in the Enneagram world if there's something like that, or if it's really, to me, I feel like it's really hard because I just see a lot of memes. Like, honest, like I just see a lot of memes with like, just because you're good at drawing cute pictures and creating memes, like that doesn't mean you're a good or bad teacher. And so like, how could, I don't know, a normie person me navigate?
Two things popped in my mind. One of them is lines. And so if you're reading a post or you're reading information and it is literally like drawing a line around the type structure and not creating a dotted line, and what I mean by that is that Enneagram types, by nature, the ego structure has its own version of how it kind of reacts and does things, but it does not have a hard line around it. So it can escape out of the line and have energy that look like different types or different cultures or whatever. However you were born, you got different cultures. So it may not be your numbers culture. So you have that. So when I see a teacher who's drawn like a hard line or says something hard line around a type and says this type is 100% like that, I'm a little weary and cautious of that. And so looking at the language that teachers use, which is the next point that I want to make, is Also, I would say a red flag, really looking at the language and how they encase the language. Because when we're talking about the Enneagram, we're talking about something that is, we're talking about a person's identity almost. Like we have identified with these things before we learn it's like, this is not our identity. It's a part of us, but not our identity. And so you're dealing with really fragile things, really fragile parts of ourselves. And to use hard language when you're talking about the fragility of somebody's ego, oh my goodness, that can be dangerous, detrimental, and harmful. And so if a teacher's doing that, back away ASAP, run away, listen to someone else, because that is going to be damaging more than actually helpful to people.
Wow. I appreciate you saying that, because one thing I've seen a few times is language people use around type ones and memes where it's like, oh, one is rigid, one is clean, one is organized. And it's like, I mean, I know ones who are rigid, clean, and organized, and I know ones who do not fit that bill at all. But I also, because saying things like rigid is something that's going to set off a type one structure. So it's like being really mindful in the language you're using with people. Yeah,
because it's the difference between saying can be, usually is, tends to be, compared to you are. There's a whole difference there. There's an identity difference there, right? Generally, sevens are happy and optimistic, floating around everywhere, but not always. There's moments, sevens can be very negative, matter of fact, So like making sure that in the way they use language I would say that's one of the biggest red flags for sure. Watching out for that.
Yeah, thank you for that. I think that is such good insight. And I will be watching out for that too, because I think I fall into when I see posts about my type and I'm like, damn it, that's all I am. I'm just a sad little 4. Like, can I be happy? Like,
yes.
Is it possible for me to be a happy person, or am I just always sad and moody? Because that's kind of what these little memes tell me.
No, you are happy. I'm feeling the happiness now.
Yeah. Yeah. Whew. I'm getting a little frustrated thinking about all of the meme culture in the Enneagram world and just how much it takes away from, and we all talk about this separately because I talked to you both separately, but about like the nuance of the Enneagram and the types and just like these little things that really get lost, I think, in Instagram specifically. And this is a way different topic than anything I had thought of bringing up, and maybe we'll edit it out. But
no, actually, I'm curious about that, because sort of with where this conversation is going, I'm curious to know from both of you if you think social media is partly why there's these, I don't know. I mean, like social media, we could talk to someone else and have a whole episode on it or something. But just thinking about social media's impact on wellness in many ways. Social media's impact on our personal use, as well as how we learn about different modalities, whether it's the yoga, meditation, or Reiki, or the Enneagram, or anything else. Like, what are your thoughts on that? Because I'm finding it's like a double-edged sword, and it's a very sharp one.
Yeah. Ooh, I like that. Double-edged and very sharp. I totally agree. I think here's the balance of it. It's so crazy because I love the fact that more and more people are understanding and knowing what the Enneagram is. That's absolutely great. If we can get you a tool that helps you to find some type of self-awareness, I don't want you to get stuck there. That's the problem. People get stuck, but I'm loving that more and more people are knowing about it. That's great, right? Downside though, there's a lot of misinformation. There's a lot of self-glorification that happens with certain people and their profiles and different things. And then there's also, like you said, like reading like the post and then be like, oh, that's all I am? Dang, that's, because literally if you don't know you're more than that when it comes to Enneagram, you might take it hook, line, and sinker and be like, oh, that's me. They first it's like, oh, that's me. But it's like, oh, I guess that's me. Like, no, you're so much more. Like, yes, that is identified with that ego structure, but not you. Your essence is way more than just simply that number. So that's very important. I think it is something that is it is that double-edged sword, and we have to really be careful with it, and we have to be of our own use, because for each one of our types, it can do something a little different for all of us, and so we have to be aware of what that's doing to us personally, right? I'm thankful that I really get tired on social media. So I've hired someone to help with my social media. And guess what? I have seen posts. Let me say this. I've seen posts because um, my virtual assistant was making posts, and they're not in America. And so they were making posts, and they were putting to what they believe was the general American way people wanted to see people. They were putting skinny white folks. And I was like, no, that is not what we're posting. I want multicolored, multicultural, all types of different people on my post. And she was like, got it. I was like, all right, cool. Because that's just her perception of what America was and everything happening, And so I let her know, and so now I have like I love it because it's totally different, different people every post that she has on there. And then, but I also make sure there are some posts sometimes because she doesn't understand my version, doesn't understand the Enneagram as well as I do, you know. And because I give her free autonomy to knock out stuff, and I try to give her resources, but I'm not always there to see the posts that's like playing always. So I have taken down one or two because I felt they were not. I felt that they could lead to misinformation. And so then I would take it down. I would let her know just kind of about it and just fill her in a little bit more on the Enneagram because I really do think it's so important about how you present the information and you contact people. Like that's huge. I'm not going to get the most posts. I'm not going to get the most repost and all these stories, all this type of stuff necessary. I'm not going to grow huge and big, and I'm totally okay with that. Because what I'm doing, I'm trying to actually help people really go inside and do the work so they can really transform their lives and not just be happy, buzzy. I look real good out here, you know what I'm saying? I want it to really be good and deep work. And that's the reason why I try to post like I do, and I don't do like overt amounts of things that I like. People would love if I posted this, because it don't do nothing. It's real surfacey, and that makes my skin crawl.
One thing I want to add on that is I think I kind of noticed this past year, 2020, a lot of and this isn't exclusively true. Like I see people that I value and appreciate posts all the time, but I think most of the coaches, yoga teachers, Enneagram professionals, people that I know in the wellness field who I value, a lot of them have kind of not given up on social media, but have started to approach it in a very different way now because a lot of us are seeing these limitations that you're having, like defining the friends cast in an Enneagram post. You know what I mean? Like those characters are not developed enough to have Enneagram types. As someone who's seen Friends thousands of times, I'm not necessarily proud of it, but it's true. You know what I mean? Like they're not developed enough. And it's to see like all of that stuff taking up space on the internet. And then you're posting things that matter, that mean things, that have nuance. It's like, why am I spending all this time and energy to craft something when most of these people are just coming up with anything to put together to have something to keep that platform, to keep the algorithm going, and look how great I'm doing, and I know so much,
Yeah.
Or it's the collecting all the followers, right? Like those really large meme accounts, and then they'll try to sell you a retreat or something.
I know. It's like, no, I'm good on that. That's the interesting part about it too. It's like we do have to be careful of in the world of the Enneagram right now. You have to be careful of accounts that are super large. Right now, I'll be honest.
I say the same for yoga, to be honest.
Because and no disrespect to any of those accounts or whatever, but to be honest, the teachers who are doing the work that I have seen over time do the work. I mean, like Russ Hudson, one of the greatest Enneagram teachers. I don't know if that man has over, I don't know, 5,000 people following him, like barely, and he's like triple our age. So like, I don't even know. He's not triple our age. Sorry, Russ, but I'm just saying he's
an
on there.
elder in the Enneagram, so you respect that. He's an
That's
elder.
right. And he does post things on there, and he's one of literally the top ranked, and he's not. He doesn't have a ton of crazy followers on like social media and everything. You know what I'm saying? So I would just I guess that could be like, I wouldn't say a red flag, but just be cautious. Like for really big accounts in the Enneagram space at this point in society or in time that we're in, just be cautious of those. Just be cautious, yeah.
I think that's a great advice for really any account. It's just that I think I'm hearing you say to practice discernment. And that's definitely something I have to try to do in all social media platforms that I've been using, is the discernment of the same thing goes with Twitter, and who has the most followers on Twitter. The same thing goes on Instagram in the yoga meditation world. The same thing goes on, I don't know if you've been on Clubhouse. It's a newer audio-based app.
I've heard of it.
Goes on Clubhouse, right? It's a very similar theme. And so thank you for just also shouting that out with the Enneagram world, because I think right now the Enneagram is so hot. Like, it seems like to me that there's so many people who are eager to learn about it, because I think it is a very beautiful tool and system, from what I know about it. And I like love to see that excitement when people find out something and they're like, oh my gosh, I want to know more about it. I want to tell people about it. Because I've also been like that in, the yoga and meditation world. And then there's that big, and be careful with what you're actually like the information you're consuming. And then it's like, who is your teacher and your quote unquote expert that's telling you these things? And I just want to ask something, because you mentioned it earlier with how you get your VA, you have your VA to help you with your social media posts, and this assumption that in America people want to see like, just white skinny folks. Mm-hmm. And I'm curious to know, if you think that is I guess if you think that's because your VA is making assumptions about Americans, or if you think maybe that's what people even think the Enneagram is throughout the world. Like, is it like other things in wellness, it seems like pretty white. And I know I'm opening like a big topic here, but wondering if you'd like to speak on that. And then also Zara, I'd love to also hear about, I've talked to Zara a little bit about it, and a little bit of how you navigate that, or why you think that is, and like if there's any change coming on that.
Wow.
Like 5 questions.
I just had chills through my body when you went through that. I was like, whoa, like those good chills, like, oh shoot, we getting into this. That's what I'm talking about. So I think a big part of it is that I'll answer the first and I'll try to get to all of them. Yeah. The first, I do think outside of America, it makes sense that if they are watching American TV, that they're probably going to see skinny white folks or white people, and that's the only version for the most part. Or they see like the one or two character who's not white there, and they're usually playing a certain role. They got like a certain role they play in these type of shows or whatever, right?
Because they're storyline. Sorry.
Right. They don't have like different storylines. So that's exact. So I think that's one big part of it, and then two, I think maybe even my VAs, some of her other clients are probably white from America. So she's used to doing that for them. That's probably the part that was like, oh, and then when I had to tell her, I was like, well, skirt. All right. First and foremost, we're not doing that. So that's also another good perception too. And she didn't know what the Enneagram was before I hired her. So we went through the test and everything. And the perception around the world, though, it is through a very heavy white lens. There's no doubt. There is no doubt about that. And the thing is, it's a lot of people working on it now, which is good. I'm be honest, there's a lot of work going into it now. Like, obviously 2020 helped accelerate that process, most definitely. And I mean, coming from multiple different cultures, helping to accelerate this, which is actually really, really good and great, because many people are noticing that it's like even the descriptions of many types, it doesn't do justice to people of color. A lot of times it's more of the white culture in America's version of that type. And that's not the same for all of us, right? That's really not. And so people have been trying to, like I said, nuance the language. People have actually started, the IEA, International Enneagram Association, has started Ennea groups. And so they started one, which is BIPOC. They have started one, which is POCs, started one, which is anti-racism, started one that's LGBTQIA. Plus, and so they're actually creating more groups for different groups of people who may not just be mainstream, right? And it's also building the community of the Enneagram in a healthy way. that has actually had teachers who are leading it who like are actually those people, right? So me being a Black male teacher in the Enneagram, I am rare. I am like a unicorn out here. Not gonna lie. Um, I don't know um, too many Black Enneagram teacher males who are doing what I do. There are males using it in different places, which is great. And I love that because it is rare. But there's not any necessarily teaching like I'm teaching and like has like a small platform like I do. And so I use that I take it as a gift, as humbleness and gratefulness and a blessing to be able to have the little platform I do have to actually be able to share the work of the Enneagram, but also be able to share like that outer work portion of it and the part we're dealing with about how we treat people and like actually deconstructing institutionalized racism, deconstructing white supremacy, deconstructing like colonization, all these things like we actually have, like we got to talk about them and do something about them, like we do. We cannot be in this Enneagram world and act like it don't exist. And what I love about it is that the IAA has actually, the board of IAA has figured that out. Like the people they have there now is like, oh, we can't do that. And so there has been major shifts, even into these Enneagram groups that I'm talking to, Ennea groups which they're open, by the way, now for people who want to join one. They are actually even looking at the language, like a language guide, like what language, if you're going to be working within these groups, is going to be offensive, or what do you need to catch up on? Because the language does change, there's new things, but we have to be humble enough as facilitators and teachers in these different places to constantly be learning. If we're going to be in these fields, constantly like kind of learn like, oh, okay. And if we make a mistake, be humble enough to apologize and be like, all right, I'm gonna study and need to learn because now there's something new here that I didn't know before. I just didn't. So I think there is major shifts coming. There are teachers like Dr. Egerton, Deborah Egerton, who's leading a mad charge um, of making sure that like diversity, equity, and inclusion is started to be within the Enneagram space, and with globally, like in companies and places. So yeah, to all your questions, I mean, I do see it getting better. I see it growing, and I am thankful to be like a small part of it right now and hopefully growing, and hopefully you all will be too.
Wow, thank you so much for that. I gave you like 5 questions within one bigger question, and you answered it so thoroughly and with a lot of insight, and I just really appreciate that. And I feel so like heartened to hear that, because I've only taken like one low Enneagram training, and at the time, and this was last year, they had started to talk about the more diversity kind of stuff, but it was still like, in terms of like the cohort I was in and whatnot, it was still very white. And so I just have I don't know what's the word, like reservations, hesitations about that, just because I'm so used to the other parts of the wellness world I'm in. And as Zara knows, the yoga world and how much of a hot mess that is. And at the same time, there, like, for instance, Zara and I studied with Susanna Barkataki, who in the yoga world is doing a lot of that, leading that charge with like the DEI work and the importance of, anti-racist work and reckoning with like colonization and whatnot. And it makes me feel so funny, because I said earlier, could I ever be happy, because I'm just a sad, moody little 4. It makes me feel happy, right, to know that these things are out there and possible. And like Zara, for people who are looking at the video, it's like laughing at me, like, just but it really does make me feel excited that there's stuff happening in the Enneagram world, and that there are opportunities for people to learn about it and not feel so, I don't know, marginalized at the same time.
Yeah, because I will add that it really wasn't that long ago where we were going to conferences, and Milton and I were pretty much, among a few other people, were the only people of color in a lot of these spaces. And it's crazy to think that it was in 2019 that was the situation. And like now, to think about how many more teachers of color and teachers of different culture, minority or like marginalized teachers, like it's really just beautiful to see in 2 years. I guess almost 2 years. Yeah, crazy.
Yeah, I know, right? It's real crazy.
Yeah, losing the COVID years really just thrown everyone's sense of time off.
I know, and I remember that year that we met at that Enneagram conference, Zara. That was like the longest year of my life, but in a good way. I mean, because I mean, we did multiple conferences that year actually, but the experiences were so amazing. And here's the thing about the Enneagram community: when you become like a part of it, you grow and you go to different conferences, and you get with the group of people who are really doing their work, you meet some amazing people. Oh my. Like when you talk about being able to bring your full self, feel fully accepted, fully loved, fully cared about. Oh my goodness. Like it's unbelievable. I have so many houses I can stay in based on people knowing me from an Enneagram conference. It's kind of crazy. I was like, you only know me for like 4 or 5 days. And they're like, if you ever come in my town, please stay in my house, you know? And, but it's because in these conferences, people like who are really doing the work, you really get to see each other. You get to see the person. A lot of times we see the ego structure, or we see purely the actions or purely the words they say, but there's so much more there and underneath it. And a lot of times we don't get to see that if we don't know how to look for it as well. So in these conferences, you start to see that from people, and you find a deeper love and empathy and compassion for yourself and others. And it's like, whoa, this is deep. Me, Zara, and a good friend of ours, Chi Chi, we went to the beach at the last day of our Enneagram conference about 2 years ago, and you talking about one of the most, I don't know how to describe the experience. It was like it was a spiritual experience. That's what it was. That's why. Yeah, I can't really explain it with words because it was spiritual. We had did so much inner work, so much work, and we went to this beach, and there was like Zara was just doing. There was like crying. There was just this deep expression of everything within being like okay in the moment. This deep sense of presence, of just being like, I'm here right now. I'm here. Like this is okay right here. I am grateful, blessed, thankful, loving this moment right here. And that's just a moment. It's crazy. It was like watching an Apple commercial, but we were living it. You know what I'm saying? You'd be like, oh my gosh, they look
Love
so
that
cool.
metaphor.
You know, but we were living it. And I got pictures to prove it. Like it's one picture, I'm like, that could be in an Apple commercial right there. That picture right there.
And
Um,
I was just going to say truly though, because I remember, I mean, we stood there and looked out at the ocean. Everyone was silent for minimum 5 minutes. And it wasn't like there was a weirdness where you're like, are we like, why are we all standing here quietly? It was just like, oh, like this is just so wonderful and amazing and beautiful that like there are no words that anybody needs to say here or convey here, because we understand each other on a level that's beneath what our type is, and we understand ourselves in that way, and it's just like really beautiful to share with other people. And I think that's like the power of the Enneagram community and the Enneagram in general.
yes. Ooh. Mm-hmm.
Wow. I'm so intrigued, and I'm so, thankful to hear that such an experience is possible. Just, in any world, but especially in wellness and in something like the Enneagram. I'm just so happy and grateful for you both for doing what you both do. I mean, of course, I'm grateful for Zara. Like, you're my co-host, but like, I love you, so I just want to tell you that again, because when I got feelings, I got to share them, right? And so, yeah, and I want to ask you, Milton, what is one thing that you want to see more of in wellness, and this could be in particular to the Enneagram world, and what's one thing you want to see less of?
Ooh. All right. Good one. Here we go. I would say one thing that came up for me as you were asking the question that I want to see more of is I want to see more somatic work in the Enneagram space. There's tons
Can you
of
explain a little
head.
bit about what somatics work means?
Okay, and you two probably can speak to it even better than I can to a certain degree, but somatic is the sensations that happen in the body that are connected to either stored energy from situations, emotions. These different things actually store energy within our bodies, and especially when it comes to like trauma, it comes to like a whole lot of different things that can actually make that happen. So the sensations that happen in our bodies. So giving the listeners an example, a really easy example is like you're driving along a steep hill and you're going down and you feel like just like this wave in your stomach. Oh my goodness, like there's a sensation there, and there's not always necessarily emotion attached, but there is a sensation. And so understanding that that sensation has a connection to your emotions and your thinking, but it's also energy within your body. And so a lot of times we feel things and we're so disconnected from our bodies, and we're taught that way, unfortunately, that we don't understand that it's so much power and information in our bodies. And to really unlock some of these things, to really heal, we have to deal with those somatic parts of our bodies. So for instance, um, say for instance that you get angry at a certain point. There's certain things that trigger you, right? That lies in your body somewhere too. That's anger that's energy that has trapped somewhere in your body. And the thing is, we tend to like try to think about it, try to do all these other things when we really need to breathe, sit down with it, and allow ourselves to really be curious about that spot of whatever is at in our bodies of what's happening. So it'll allow that energy to actually be able to move eventually, but to actually honor that part of ourselves, to honor that spot, because it's trying to tell us something. It's trying to give us information. And we just do all these other things in order not to deal with it. So I think that's a big part of the Enneagram world that I'm doing more and more exploration on and learning and getting better with, but it has to be a part of it. Like you cannot keep growing in the Enneagram world if you're not becoming in touch with your body and knowing what's going on there. Because there's literally physical stuff in our bodies, the energy will stop us. It will stop us, and then it will reinforce our Enneagram type structure. And we'll be running that same pattern over and over again. So we have to be able to deal with those things inside of ourselves, which I want to see the most. The thing I want to see less of, ooh, that's a tricky one. I probably got a long list of these, but I'm trying to keep a PG up in this mug. All right. So
No, I mean, Zara, what is this? A PG-13 podcast? Like,
no, it's all good. No,
I don't live with the rating, and I have a very bad potty mouth, so we all know that.
yeah, I mean, I don't have anything like too crazy to say, but I'm trying to think of what I would like to see less of. And I think when it comes to that, the first thing that comes up to my brain right now is just less misinformation on the Enneagram. If I could see less of that, I would be so excited. Because there's a part of me sometimes, because I support the community and I'm cautious with the people I follow on like Instagram, because they'll follow my podcast on there if they've seen it, and I'll be looking at their posts and like, let me see what's going on here, and I'd be like, ooh, no, that's not true. That's just not true. And then a fight between like, do I put it out there? Do I go ahead and state it here? Or like, ooh, I don't think I should do that because that could cause a whole like, and I'm not trying to get in an argument with nobody. That's a waste of my energy. Like if I saw them in person and we had a conversation, we can talk about it. But I'm not going to waste my energy right here telling them how wrong what they just put in is. But if I could see less misinformation out there on the Enneagram, that would be a gift to me.
yeah, that I agree with that, and I'm really hoping for a future with less misinformation too, because I am finding the Enneagram so interesting, and now I'm like, I want to know more. And so, can you let us know how people can get in touch with you?
So they can contact me at kaizencareers.com. If they're looking for coaching or consulting, they can follow me on Instagram at Do It For The Gram Podcast. It's also at kaizencareers.com. I mean, Kaizen Careers. And those are 3 ways that people can get in contact with me. I just dropped an ebook today. It's free. It's on Enneagram Career Guides. It's something really simple, sweet, and short. I'm very practical. That's just how I naturally am very practical. So this career guide is just very practical, very down to earth, just giving you short, sweet tidbits that could be helpful to any Enneagram type. So you can find that on kaizencareers.com, but like you said, it'll also be in the show notes as well. And besides that, I do have some big things coming up. Well, I also have an Enneagram book that I'm doing, and I'm very excited about, but also like a little nervous and anxious about. But that's all good. So I do have that coming out.
Wow. Thank you so much, Milton, for all of your insight knowledge and your beautiful like presence. Thank you. Thank you so
Appreciate
much
it.
for chatting with us today. And to our listeners, thank you for listening to the Thoughtful Wellness Revolution podcast. And be sure to follow us on social media and subscribe to wherever you're listening to us.